welcome to the Unhinged.
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 The Unhinged Poddy.
Welcome to the Unhinged Poddy. This is your host Rasi, and this week we are spilling the tea on sustainability, dissecting its gendered burdens, corporate greenwashing, and digging into why the ultra-rich need to take responsibility for trashing the planet. And with me today is John, my neighbor and sustainability consultant, author and accidental influencer, to share his insights and knowledge. Hi, John.
Howdy again, neighbor.
If you haven't already, please go check out the previous 3 episodes, which are the first 3 parts of this discussion. And after discussing the role of gender and the impact on gender, how sustainability and environmental crises are discussed and how they're handled and approached, we are now moving on to talking about class privilege and the price of doing the right thing. So thank you again, John, for making the time and giving us such smart perspectives and educated perspectives. We need more of that, so thank you. Now, to start the conversation, we did discuss in our last session how to be sustainable and to have all of those ethics sometimes is a privilege to have, because not all of us can prioritize doing the right thing over trying to live within the means that we have. Now, you do say sustainability is a privilege. To be sustainable is a privilege. Who do you think can actually afford the time, mental space, and the money to care? Is it the middle person? Of course, super affluent people, yes. Whether they do it or not, debatable. But where do you think the maximum impact would sit if we were to distribute it amongst ourselves in different classes?
So it's, again, another interesting question. I think just to be clear, so sustainability is a privilege for those in a privileged class, a privilege to participate in. But for other people, it's an absolute necessity to be sustainable. So particularly people in the developing world, as we talked about in the first part, being sustainable it's a necessity to your life. It's your life, and you deal with the impacts from not being sustainable day in and day out. But for those that we're talking about now that are privileged, so people primarily in the developed north or from a higher socioeconomic background, we really have to consider it from the perspective of what strata of socioeconomic bracket they're in. So if you're in the, let's call it the top 1% of wealth earners in the world, and the number is going to be different depending where you are, but if you have that amount of wealth, we know statistically that you are going to have a demonstrably larger negative impact on the planet. So from your consumption habits, typically, if you're in the 1%, you might have a private jet or a super yacht, which is super polluting. So you, therefore, because of that, you have, in an ideal world, more responsibility to offset that by doing better things. So that's where the onus really lies, is with those people in the top 1% of wage earners around the world. To your point earlier, are they going to do anything? No, we know very well that they're not doing things. I think the latest statistic from Oxfam, this report came out last year, is that the top 50 wealth earners in the world, they emit more pollution in 90 minutes than the average human does in a lifetime. How do you offset that is the ultimate question. It's nearly impossible to do so.
But it's okay for them to use the private jet because their time is more valuable than yours or mine.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right. I forgot about that.
That's how they try and justify it?
Yes, that's exactly right. Oh. That's why, Kim Kardashian can take a 17-minute flight when she could have just driven for half an hour, because their time is more valuable, apparently.
I think it was one of the Jenners, apparently.
They do. All of them
do that. And there's no consequences to this. You know the impact and the harm it is doing, but no will to actually police this. You and I will be thinking about paying that extra fee when we book the tickets. Remember, it asks you if you want to offset the carbon emissions.
I'm rolling my eyes. I know this is audio, but I'm totally rolling my eyes.
This is so dumb.
Why am I paying an airline to be green instead of them just being... Why am I paying for that? It shouldn't even be a privilege. It should just be a built-in thing from the business. So it is quite frustrating. I think those that are in the middle of wealth earners, I think the responsibility is always thrown on us to be better. And yes, we can all absolutely be better with our spending habits and our consumption and the things we do and its impact on the planet and society. But to what we talked about in part one, it really should be on these corporations to be changing their ways. I shouldn't have to pay for a corporation to be better, because at the end of the day, that's not really saving the planet. It's just helping their bottom line.
But who does it then end up making feel good about themselves?
I think one of the misconceptions a lot of people have around doing better for the planet or for society is that it has to cost money. And yes, sometimes it does. Like if I want to make a sustainable purchase choice, it absolutely costs more money, and I will probably have to do research to find what that option is. And I know people hear that and they go, ugh, research. And I think the same thing. I don't want to pull out my phone every time I want to go shopping at the grocery store or to buy something. So that absolutely is something that does happen with the cost of being quote unquote good. But we also need to, and in the same way we looked at this through the lens of the top 1% of wage earners, for those that are maybe lower down the socioeconomic brackets, they're probably having not as much of a negative impact on the planet. So it has to balance itself out a little bit more. But a lot of the things that we can do to be better, they don't necessarily have to cost us that much money. It's a small shift. It's a shift to, this might sound trite, shopping more locally. So you reduce the impact from logistics and transport. It could be just, I don't know, doing something in your local community that is impactful. That's also important versus going and hugging the trees. You're doing something for the elderly. I don't know what it might be. So there are ways to contribute in a meaningful way that may not necessarily break the bank.
That it would be about education and wanting to do.
Yes, a big part of our job is always been about education. And again, we've been really bad at it, but there are a million different pathways to being better for the planet.
So then what do you think happens when culture starts to demand ethical choices from people, everyday people, without giving them ethical options? For example, you would ask a single mother to choose between a $9 piece of lettuce versus a $2 plastic wrapped one, like whatever's convenient for her.
My perspective is always that the individual can only do as much as the individual can do. There's no such thing as a perfect environmentalist or a perfect do-gooder. You do what you can do with the means that you have. If you have more means, then you should technically be doing more. If you don't and you can contribute in one particular way, that's fine. I usually bring this up in the context of a conversation around fast fashion. So fast fashion, very detrimental to the planet and especially to workers. But for some people, they say, well, that's all I can afford. And my reply to them is, that's totally fine. If that is all you can afford, that's all you can afford. I would encourage people to be thinking a little more intelligently about their shopping choices. Are they looking at this because it's cheap versus the cost of use over time, which actually may be cheaper if you buy something a little more expensive? Are you consuming because you think you need to have this much stuff? Can you pare it back a little bit? And if you are having to consume from a highly polluting source like a fast fashion house, how do you offset that bit of quote unquote bad behavior in another aspect of your life? It becomes about balance, right? So if you're buying the latest thing from Shein, and I would encourage everybody to not do that, but if you are, can you then somehow, some way volunteer your time to a community organization? Or can you, I don't know, become a sustainability person in your business? Can you become the advocate there? Can you do something to balance this out a little bit more? Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And it does become about balance and making sure you're, at the end of the day, really contributing a net positive to the planet and society.
I think also being a little mindful about why you're making purchases as a woman. The easiest example and more relatable example I can give would be Shein. I myself have bought a shit ton of things from Shein. And guess what? I have stuff in my closet that's 10 years old from Shein. I managed to buy some basics from it. They're cheap, but they lasted. So I don't think that was a bad decision. That was actually a good decision. Are there practices really horrible? Yes, they are. They continue to be. But I did what served best in my pocket's interest at the time, and I continue to stand by it because I bought it for the right reasons, and I did not want variety. I wanted some staples. I wanted some super cheap connecting pieces, and that was a good idea. I did not want to spend more money on it. I wanted to give this a try, and somehow it was successful. It's a hit and miss, I know, but consuming it like this, fine. Most mindsets are influenced by the idea that you need to have variety. You just need to look good. This is how you'll get clout. This is how you'll get validation, attention, whatever, online. You'll get popularity because volume will sell everything, or you'll get paid. Shein pays for you to market for them. And that's the whole concept. So I can understand the mindset, and it all goes hand in hand with, like you said, to think through how cost per wear is going to be looking like, and do you see value in this long term, or are you just doing it because others are doing it? Do you want a particular fast fashion item because everybody's wearing it, but if they stop tomorrow, would you still want to be seen in it?
And that the economics around this are important, because I can quote statistics all day. I can tell people about how a pile of clothes from fast fashion is thrown out the height of the Eiffel Tower every 7 minutes. But that's not going to really get people thinking differently. But what will is the economics. So thinking about fashion and clothing, just changing the perspective, not even that much, to where we were sort of thinking about slow consumption not that long ago. I mean, I remember, I'm not that old, and being in high school, people were, women were doing their own prom dresses. They were making them at home, or their moms were making them. Yeah. That's not that long ago. When I was a kid, I had cloth nappies. Yeah. That was before that, diapers were a thing, so disposable diapers. So it's not that far removed from us. It's not like we've been consuming this way forever. We've consumed seasonally for a very long time, up until not too long ago when the fast fashion model started. So getting people to think about cost per wear, I think, is probably the easiest on-ramp to getting them thinking particularly differently about fashion, where cost per wear, your example is an outlier around Shein, because typically things would fall apart. So I'm happy to hear that some things were built to last. But by and large, these things are not built to last, and that's the model. They're done that way on purpose, which is why it's called fast fashion. A good comedian friend of mine used to have a joke in her set where she said, this girl, my girlfriend came up and she said, this relationship looks really, really good. And I told her that's an H&M relationship, because it looks good right now, but it's going to fall apart in 3 months. Yeah. So that's sort of where things are. So getting back to this mindset of cost per wear and things that are lovingly made, potentially locally made, where you can actually see the person that's made your clothes, will last much longer over a longer course of time and cost you less in the long run. And of course, all of this is a very privileged take. I am not ignorant of that by any stretch of the imagination. So we contribute where we can.
This might be a little bit removed from our ongoing conversation, but because you mentioned how mothers not that long ago, maybe in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, were stitching clothes at home for their daughters and sons to wear, cloth nappies. I've been raised on cloth nappies. That part really rubs me the wrong way sometimes, though, because you know who is responsible to do all of this? Women. Their time. Cloth nappies have to be washed, dried, all of that. It heavily relies on women and their labor and their time. A lot of things, the feasibility of them being sustainable, relied heavily on people putting in time. A lot of that shifted when women went into the workforce, started to become more independent, started to have more rights. They stopped giving time into these things, and they started consuming more because, in a strange way, their success in society, their privilege, their quality of life increasingly started to get affected by the way they present themselves. A large part of it is somehow deeply rooted in consumerism. No wonder then everything is directed towards them. They will build that insecurity into you, then sell you shit to get rid of that insecurity and to somehow harness your power. Does it not work? Yes, sadly it does. If you put time and money and attention into your presentation, it's going to pay off in some or the other way. But the moment women started to prioritize their time, this is the additional burden that came up. I will never not be annoyed by the whole conversation how menstruation products have been discussed in this context all the time. If you can make them biodegradable, why isn't it happening all along?
why did you even in the first place start to build something that's not meant to be useful to the environment? Can I stop menstruation? Fuck no, I wish. I wish. All of us do. All the women do. Why did you only now realize that it's ending up in the landfill? And then give us solutions that do not suit half of us? Why do you want to take away our convenience? Why don't you come up with a solution? Why don't you subsidize it? Are you for real? The burden is always going to be misplaced, and I know we did say it, and it's just something that keeps coming back to me. But anyway, moving further along, do you think the obsession with individual sustainability, the constant narrative that we consume on socials or in the public discourse, for example, what we eat, what we drive, what we buy, it's designed to distract us from the systemic action? Because who benefits from diverting the talking points towards that narrative? So the more you put it like, oh, what are you doing? It shushes you from pointing the finger at your government, at your councils, at the legal systems, whatever it might be. Do you also feel like that's how it was designed to work?
Whether it was designed to work that way or not, it's definitely working, and companies have capitalized on it 100%. And like we talked about earlier on in the first part, it really should not be at this stage of the game on the consumer to make the vast majority of change, because the scale of the issues we're facing are so large that really it is only governments and corporations that can move the needle in the right direction. So my favorite example, it's not a favorite example, it's just the most telling example of companies passing down the onus of responsibility on the individuals comes to us from the carbon footprint calculator. So a lot of people know what a carbon footprint calculator is. They type in, the different things they do, and they want to see how big their footprint is, because the idea is that we're supposed to reduce our carbon footprint so that we can help to save the planet. What people don't know is who invented the carbon footprint calculator.
Oh.
You don't know? I can see it in your face.
No.
British Petroleum invented the carbon footprint calculator. BP. And they invented it because they were writing their sustainability reports. This would have been around the year 2000-ish.
That's new.
It's new. Edelman or Ogilvy, one of those big PR firms, came in and they said, hey, we have a way that you can basically publish more of these reports and get people to read them. Put in a carbon footprint calculator, but don't let the footprint calculator talk about your emissions. Have it talk about individual emissions from the readers. And that's where we get the carbon footprint calculator, and that's become so pervasive that even sustainability professionals, very few know this fact, and even more so, we use it in the profession as a gauge of how good a person is. No, so that's so telling of that's just one example of the lengths of greenwashing and misdirection the corporations will go to. That's become so ingrained in our thinking that we don't even know the truth behind it. Now, in fairness, the calculator existed before. Scientists developed it many years before, but it wasn't popularized until BP and one of those PR firms really popularized it around the year 2000.
This is misdirection at industrial strength, literally.
Yeah. They're really good at it, especially the petrochemical companies. Yeah, they're really good at it.
It's so cunning, it's genius. Like, I can't help but be impressed and horrified
they go
all at once.
They go to such lengths. They will
Right?
They will fund groups, lobbying groups that on the surface have names that you would think are good for the planet or society, but are funded by a petrochemical company. So that they will go to massive lengths to try to keep money coming into their pockets.
They're like the industry, like all of these corporations doing this, they're like a toxic boyfriend. They'll do two good things so that you start to get confused about calling them outright evil.
Gaslighting by gas companies.
Yes,
Yeah, I'll make that the title of my next book.
Literally, gaslighting by gas companies, it is. This is so fascinating. I'm learning so much. I love that. Wow. So then there will always be that tension between personal responsibility and structural change, and a massive gap between the two too. So how do we then, as aware, conscious people with borderline privilege, how do we navigate this without falling into guilt or apathy? Because unfortunately, there's no in between. Either I will go into guilt or extreme worry about, oh my God, I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more. Or go the exact opposite way and be like, you know what, I can't do shit anyway. It's not going to be meaningful and impactful anyhow. So be it. It's for next generation to handle. I can just live and die. and not have to worry about it. So how do you find a balance between this? And I know you did mention shop locally, sustainably, wherever you can, but more, because sometimes shopping sustainably and locally is not the answer either, because it ends up being way more expensive than it should be.
The two things that and these are not, people may listen to this and think, oh, John, I want practical, like I want things that I can do, and that's not really
what I'm asking you too.
I know you
sadly.
are, and I'm not going to give it to you because I never do. Because I look at this more from a behavior mindset shift perspective and letting people make the choices that are unique to them. So the first mindset shift is a sort of a mantra that I live by that I didn't come up with. I can't take credit for it, but it's definitely something I live by. And that is that you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Oh, sure.
And I think as altruists, I call myself a pragmatic altruist, as people who care, we want to do it all. I want to go outside, and every time I do, adopt every stray dog, feed every homeless person, read to the elderly, and go build a house. Like, you can't do this. So you need to pick your lane in almost such a way that it looks almost as if you have zero empathy for anything else. And that is the lane that you're going to contribute to, because time, resources, capacity, all of this stuff is so limited that you cannot do everything. And to be comfortable in the knowledge that there are billions of other people that are trying to do their part as well. You're not an army of one. So find that thing that you are so passionate about, that you want to contribute to, you have a special skill to contribute to, or you're financially able to contribute to, and that's your role. That's what you do. Focus on that and do it as best as you can. That's going to get you so much further than trying to do everything and accomplishing nothing. So that's the first mental shift and behavioral shift. The second is to not look at sustainability as something that is a quick fix or something that's going to happen overnight. We sort of talked about this in the first part. But sustainability should be viewed as a progression and a needle that gets pushed in the right direction.
It's a good, yeah.
It's slow, and I know nobody wants to hear about it being tedious and slow, but we know very well that it is. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It may not happen in our lifetimes. We may not see the impact of the things we're doing until generations from now. But when you start to look at things from that incremental shift perspective, it changes how you view the progress we're making. Instead of becoming apathetic, thinking, oh, nothing's happening, you go, oh, wait, I see the progress happening. I see this, that, or that thing happening, versus, sitting back and thinking nothing's going on. My favorite example of this is to look at it through the lens of automobiles. We talk about EVs today, and yes, EVs are problematic. They're not a perfect solution by any stretch of the imagination. But
are they better than
a combustion?
Ones?
Absolutely. Yeah. They are so much better.
That's a start.
That's a start. And it is moving the needle in the right direction to the point now where I think Toyota was the last company to announce they have some sort of an EV. Every major car company now has an EV somewhere in their line. That means for these corporations, EVs are no longer a differentiator. They can't position themselves because, I have an EV, I'm different.
It's not a selling point.
It's not a selling point. Now they need to think further. And they're now challenged with thinking, okay, what can I develop that's even better for the planet than an EV? And so now companies are doing that, which never would have happened if we just were driving around in our regular old automobiles. To the point where I know there are automobile companies now that there's one out of China that they have cars that run on salt batteries. I don't know how it works. I'm not an engineer. I just know that they do. And there's one major automotive company that is in very serious board level discussions to divest from automobiles entirely. And they're not talking about doing this like in 2500. They're talking about by 2030, is there a way for us to entirely divest from automobiles? And not as an academic exercise, as this is the only way we know our brand is going to survive. We are going to potentially invest only in public transportation. So these are the sort of incremental changes that when you just look at it and you're stuck in the weeds, you go, God, we're not getting anywhere. But when you look at it from an incremental perspective, you go, okay, I can see the progress happening.
We've seen that while the progress is incremental, it's happening. Join us next to uncover the most insidious forms of greenwashing and how corporations actively mislead us. And that was the Unhinged Poddy episode for today. I hope you enjoyed. Reach out to us at the Unhinged Poddy on our socials. Give me your feedback, suggestions. Tell me what you would like me to talk about next. Until then, bye.
Unhinged Poddy.